So just coming home today. So God bless America, the USA. So just coming home today.
G from the D, my brother G.Kiel. Welcome to the show. Thank you for being our special guest today. How are you and the family?
Thank you, sir. Good, man. Getting it. Staying on that grind, man. Appreciate you having me.
Yes. Thank you so much for being our special guest today here at the Veteran Kettle podcast. We have an extensive history together. We sailed together, my shipmate, you
Yes,
know.
sir.
So, man, we got a great show today, and I know you're gonna drop some major jewels and gonna share a lot of good stuff. So, without further delay, let's get into the show. My first question for you today is, what inspired you to join the military?
So back in the day, man, high school, I did the RTC program. I was debating about whether or not I wanted to do it. So I talked to my mom, and my sister was in it, and I saw them green uniforms, all that stuff, and I was like, nah, man, I ain't trying to do that. They would tell me about inspections and all that stuff, and so I'm like, nah, I ain't trying to do it. Um, And so my mom's talked to me about ROTC, and she kind of convinced me. Um, I'm like, all right, I'll try it, or whatever. So when I went in, I started to like it, man. A lot of cool cats, singing cadence, man. Did the little air rifle team. Um, I was on the drill team, fancy drill team, and then I was a raider. The raider detachments, man, they special forces or ROTC or whatever. And so in order to qualify, you had to come to school before school started, and then we trained. We worked out. Had to pass the PT test, whatever. Um, and you had to pass the air rifle qualification. You had to do a camp, Raider camp. Past that, had like a 20-mile march, all that good stuff. And you was a Raider. And you was a Raider, man. That was it, bro. We didn't have to wear the little green envelope hats. We wore the black berets as a Raider. Black cord on our uniforms, all that stuff, man. That was it, man. If you was a Raider, like you was that deal in RTC, bro. And so I started thinking about joining the Army, and then my uncle was in the Coast Guard, and so I started thinking about joining the Army, and I talked to my mom's about it, and first she was like, the Army, because it kind of came out of nowhere. I'm like, man, I'm thinking about joining the Army, and she started to talk to me about joining the Coast Guard instead. My uncle's in the Coast Guard. I talked to him a lot about that. And I was a swimmer. So I came to King High School on the east side of Detroit to swim on the swim team. Before that, I was at Miller Middle School. And so back in the day, Miller Middle School used to be a high school in Detroit. And so since it used to be a high school, I had a swimming pool in there. It had a big wall in the middle of the swimming pool. Back in the day, it did when it was high school. And so it had girls on one side, boys on the other side. Something happened to the wall; they tore it down, like long before I got there. But it used to be a high school, so it was like one of the only middle schools with a swimming pool in it. And so I learned how to swim in middle school. Started in sixth grade, took swim class. So I took it all the way through middle school. I was an aide on the for the swim instructor. I'm after like 7th, 8th grade or something like that. And so I did that, got good at swimming. The coach from King High School used to come to the middle school to scout out people to take to King in order to swim. And so he came, watched us swim, and then I was one of the ones he picked. And so when he picked me, we had to go to King to do the actual tryout for the at King Swimming Pool High School for the swim team or whatever. Come to find out, Miller Middle School, it was a high school back in the day, long before my time. My uncles used to go there to Miller when it was high school. So I was talking to one of my uncles about it, and he knew I was on the swim team or whatever. And I told him my coach, Coach James, and he was like, Clyde James? I'm like, yeah, Coach James. He's like, horseshoe on his chest? I'm like, yeah. He was a swim coach when it was high school at Miller. And so, but now he was at King because Miller is a middle school now. And so, but anyway, so I know how to swim, all that good stuff. And, decided to do the Coast Guard instead of the Army, man. And that's what started it all.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. Yeah, that's great, family. Do you remember what it was like for you when you first joined boot camp?
Yes, sir, man. Boot camp. Actually, I was on a late bus because it was a storm. And so we got stranded in Philly because our flight got delayed. Um, and so we came the day after. And so when we came the day after, um, we was a little bit behind on everything, all that good stuff. But it was just one day. And so we got there day after, probably about 10 of us. And so, but boot camp, man, boot camp is like they always say, man, the days go by slow, the weeks go by fast, bro. And so
Right.
you look up, long days, and then by the time you look up, you're already 3 weeks in. You feel me? And so boot camp was good, man. Met a lot of dope people. In the Coast Guard, a couple cats I still keep in touch with from boot camp until now. That was over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But boot camp, man, it was a fun experience. I was questioning why I wanted to be there when, like, them first few weeks of being with our company commanders, first week or so. And I just sit there because I couldn't sleep really at night because I was staying up all night before I went to boot camp. Because I went right after high school, graduated high school, did the delayed entry program in August. I was in boot camp in November after going to high school, so I was hanging out all night or whatever after high school. So once I got into boot camp, I couldn't really sleep at night, so I'd just be standing up there at the ceiling, bro. I'm trying to figure out, like, man, why am I here? But then it hit me once I got that name tape. It said time as U.S. Coast Guard. And so I'm like, all right, I'm doing this, doing it for real. And so that whole boot camp experience, man, it taught me a lot, obviously, with camaraderie, teamwork, all that good stuff, man. I was marching squad leader, singing cadence, marching squad leader, won the leadership award on boot camp at a fresh 19 years old, man. And it was dope, man, because the leadership award, that's the only joint that you get voted by the people, your peers. So the company commanders, they didn't pick the leadership award, the wonderful leadership award. I don't know what they're doing now, but so the leadership award, that was voted for by everybody in the company, my peers, and they voted me for the leadership award. And so that's where it all began, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, boot camp is a unique experience for everyone that goes through it.
Yes,
Um,
sir.
what was your first unit like after you left boot camp?
So I left boot camp, bro. So back up when I went to recruiting office, I got guaranteed A school back then. That's when they was doing that. And so at first I was gonna be a BM, and then I went to MEPS, and I was colorblind, a color deficient. So it was like, no, you can't be a BM. I'm like, man, that just. I was looking at what BMs did, job boats, all that stuff. And then he was like, color deficiency. I think there's only 4 jobs I can do. And I ended up picking DC. Another one was T. Remember they had telecommunications specialists back in the day? Changed them
Yes.
jobs to OSs. That was
Yeah.
another one I can do, but I'm like, nah, I ain't trying to do that. So I picked DC, and then so I got guaranteed A school. But I still had my A school didn't start right after boot camp, so I had to, I was a 9 rate at Yorktown working for MAA staff for a minute until my school started, and then so I went from there. In DC school, they didn't go by scores like some of the other classes did. They just went straight up by priority. Like, you coming from a unit, you've been on a ship or whatever. And so I'm coming from boot camp. non-rate for a few months at Yorktown. So I'm at the bottom of the list, picking. And ain't nothing at the bottom but 270s in my class. That was it, man. I was trying to go to this Black Hall back in not in Detroit, but in Port Huron, near Detroit, about 45 minutes out from Detroit. This other cat wanted it, and so man, that's how it ended up on the big white nasty, bro. The 270. That was my first unit, man. When I was stationed with you, bro.
The Tampa,
Reporting there.
wow.
Yes, sir. That was my first unit at the A school, technically, because I was an honorary for a few months in Yorktown, and then after I graduated, I went to Tampa. That was it. 19, bro, showing up, you know, culture shock, man. What last year I'm in a D. You know, next year I'm floating in the middle of the ocean somewhere, bro. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
On a ship, rocking and rolling. Big culture shock, bro. But yeah, Tampa, the 270, bro. That was my first unit. You know, 19, straight out A school, bro. Yes, sir.
Yeah. What were some of your roles and responsibilities on the Tampa as a DC?
So DC damage control, man. Our general responsibilities, you know, for the viewers, carpentry, welding, firefighting. Of course, damage control, where you're dealing with flood and dewatering. You know, patching up pipes, the hull of the ship if you got some kind of accident or something like that. So we was trained in all that stuff. Of course, there's not a lot of carpentry on the boat, so I didn't do that while I was on the ship. But the firefighting, training people on damage control, because you know everybody on the ship, you know, is a damage controlman. When something happened, everybody got a responsibility. You know, firefighting teams, all that stuff, dewatering teams, investigators. But that was our specialty, you know. So of course we taught, you know, the DCPQS type stuff on the boat. Maintain, you know, fire extinguishers, the all the emergency equipment, stuff like that for firefighting, all that good stuff for the repair lockers. Things we use for like patching hose and doing certain emergency repairs. And so that was our specialty, including just fixing stuff in general, because you know, we welded, all that good stuff. So we were in charge of whatever plumbing on the ship, you know, walls or bulkheads. I guess that's what we say in the Coast Guard. You know, anything steel. So if it wasn't mechanical, if it wasn't electrical, you know, had nothing to do with communications, then we fixed it. You know, so that was pretty much it. Yeah, but on the ship, of course, with the Coast Guard, you know, you got your responsibilities for your trade, and then of course you got the mission. So you know, everybody, you know, flight quarters, everybody got something to do. You know, migrant ops, everybody got something to do. So although you know, you got your trade, you're still gonna be doing whatever you're doing for the ship, whatever the mission is. So responsibilities, just not as a DC, but when we was on migrant ops, of course, doing migrant ops and all that stuff for the viewers. But of course, you know, you was right there on the mess deck, man, getting down in some Madden. It was some NBA Live.
Some live.
Yeah, man. But yeah, so those roles and responsibilities, you know, we fix stuff. And then, of course, the damage control piece and emergencies, training people on that. And then also, you know, leading that, you know, also I was a TAC team leader on a fire team. That was my job. So I'm down there directing the fire team, you know, going on there, stuff like that, you know. So some of the roles and responsibilities on a ship anyway. Of course, it changes when you go landside. So landside, you do more, you know, carpentry, facilities maintenance, depending on what unit you at. And a lot of people don't know a part of the DC rate is CBRNE. So chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear warfare. So we had to learn how to decon, detect for it, all of that stuff. So that's how I ended up in MSRT. You know, it was just totally different. But usually landslide, you're doing some facilities maintenance, which is carpentry. You know, you fixing buildings. You know, we're gonna be building sheds, building gazebos. You know, land tile. I mean, pretty much anything.
Yeah, that's awesome. So real quick before we go to our next question, I wanted to point out some of the key things that you said. You said that you did carpentry, welding, CBR, chemical, biological, and radioactive, waste management, control, mitigation, you know, and you even said that you built things like gazebos and tiling and, you know, and doing all these different things these skill sets that you may not have possessed prior to going into the Coast Guard.
Facts.
What I would like to ask is, are those things transferable outside of the Coast Guard? Being if a young person was to go in, obtain those skill sets, could they then get out of any branch of the service that will offer those type of skill sets, particularly the Coast Guard being the damage controlman, and be able to go and even start their own business, okay, or also obtain really good employment in those trade specific areas?
Yeah, most definitely, man, because there's a few trades that we were able to learn with the welding, the carpentry, pipe fitting, all of that stuff. And in the civilian world, just say even if you didn't want to do it when you got out, it's still a good trade to have, man, because when I need to lay tile in my house, I did it, ceramic tile, whatever. I needed to fix plumbing in my house, I did it, drywall, whatever, I did it. So even if, you didn't go into that field after you got out, it's still a valuable skill to have, man, because I ain't got contractors today, expensive, bro. So I don't got to hire a contractor and drop 10 grand. I can buy the materials for 500, and do it myself.
Absolutely.
But transferring to the civilian world, definitely, man, because I'm sure, as you know, it's a lack of tradesmen. So it's a shortage of tradesmen, whether it's carpenters, masonry, whatever, it's a shortage. So getting out as a tradesman, you can definitely have a job. Because not a lot of people are focusing on trades. A lot of people are, going to college. That's a general goal for a lot of people. Usually when somebody do a trade, it's because they saw somebody else do it, growing up, or they kind of stumbled into it a lot of times, got a job here, then they start to learn something, then they fell into that trade. Not necessarily saying I want to grow up and be a carpenter, but having that skill set and then getting out and already having that experience, it definitely allows you to transfer that experience to the civilian world. So you can, work with companies, contractors, things like that. And then also one experience that I had, because once you go at the level where you're the tradesman, you're the worker, right? So I was also at a unit where now we were working with contractors. And so since we had a skill set and we know what's going on, we're contracting officer representative. And then also at the unit that I was, the last unit I was at, before I got out, I wrote like scopes of work for contractors. And then I had to oversee the contract, make sure they were complying with the specifications. I did government estimates, and in certain ways you have to estimate, and then when they put their bid out, then they compare it to the government estimate to see if they understand the contract. So if it's way off from the government estimate, then they're like, all right, do you understand what the scope of the contract is? Deconflict there, things like that. And so that allowed me, actually, that experience allowed me, when I transferred, out of active duty, I applied while I was still in active duty for a civilian job for the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
And so that allowed me to go to the Navy with that experience. It was on my resume. I wrote scopes of work for contract. I did government estimates.
Mm-hmm.
I managed contractors. Or technically not the manager, but you oversaw the project. So I had all that on my experience. And the Navy, of course, bigger.
Mm-hmm.
So when I had all that on my resume, in the Navy for those jobs, they have like 3 different people for the one job that I was doing in the Coast Guard. And so immediately after I got out active duty, I got picked for a Navy civilian job.
Yeah.
So definitely those experiences, learning more skill set, help you translate to the civilian world whenever you're getting out. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. That's what we wanted to highlight,
For sure.
man.
Yeah, definitely. But there's a lot of stuff that you could get into if you're serious about it. I was able to ask people like, hey, because I work with a lot of civilians at my last job, and them guys been there for years. And so I learned a lot from them cats.
Yeah.
They were civilians. They've been there 15, 20 years. You know what I mean? In the trade, you know, so you just soak up the information, man. You know, so if you humble, just soak up the information, you know, you get to learn a lot. And then the more you learn about your craft, your trade while you win, you know, applying for different schools to do different C schools or whatever, the better you're going to prepare yourself when you get out.
Absolutely. So, what advice would you have for a young person that may be pursuing or thinking of a career or just enlisting in the military?
I think the biggest piece of advice, and it's going to sound weird, but when you get in, as soon as you get in, start working on your exit plan. People get in 19, 18, young, and don't realize I'm not going to be in the military forever. Whether you make it a career, you retire at 20, whether you do one contract, 4 years, 8 years, or you get kicked out, or you get medically discharged. You don't know. So the biggest piece of advice I can give to a young cat coming in, always be thinking about what your exit plan is for the future. Because I've seen too many cats. All of a sudden they getting out. They ain't know it. Unexpected. They're like, I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Yes.
I might do this. I might do that. I don't know. I've seen cats retiring.
Yes.
Like, I'm trying to apply for some jobs. I'm trying to apply for this. They were retiring, but a lot of times you don't think about it because in time just flies so fast. You know.
Yes.
You come in young, you don't realize how fast time. You look up, man. I've been in 7 years. What? 7 years? And then before you know it, you out. Or you may have to end your career early for some reason.
Yeah.
So the biggest piece of advice I would give: start working on your exit plan early. Think ahead. Put money up. Save money. And that'll help with your exit plan. When opportunities come, you can invest in certain stuff. I was thinking about like exit plan. I didn't start thinking about it when I first came in. You know, I was young. But around like my fifth, 6th year, between 5 and 7 years, somewhere around there, I started thinking like, man, like what I'm gonna do when I get out, or am I gonna get out now? Because once you hit that 10, 11 year mark, it's like, it makes no sense to get out at that point. A lot of times.
That's right.
So once I'm at that 7 year mark, I'm like, all right, you know, what's my exit strategy? You feel me? And so that started to, you know, get gears turning. But at 18, 19, you know, when I ain't had no kids, you know, I had a car note. It was like $160. You know what I mean? I can grocery shop for like $70 for the month.
You're right.
I wasn't saving nothing. Yeah. You feel me? So I wasn't preparing myself for opportunities that came. Yeah. So the moment you come in, put up money. You ain't got to buy J's. You ain't got to buy them. You ain't got to buy this. You ain't got to buy that. Start saving money and start thinking about your exit strategy. So the more schools you can go to get more experience, different things you can do to get experience in the Coast Guard. Of course, to rank up, get promoted, do what you got to do that. Yeah, the best advice I can give: when you get in, start thinking about your exit strategy. It sounds weird because you're thinking like, oh, that's 20 years from now. And even if you last 20 years or over 20 years, you still need an exit strategy. And sometimes it's unexpected. I work with cats, you know, they had medical issues. They like, man, they med boarded me.
Yeah.
So I'm out. I'm out next year. What I'm going to do? Feel me?
Yeah.
People get in trouble for different reasons. All of a sudden, hey, I'm getting out in 6 months. 6 months ago, you were working, getting a guaranteed paycheck on the 1st and the 15th every month, medical benefits. Now, I'm getting out in 6 months.
Right.
And I didn't even know it. No preparation. So right now, start preparing your exit strategy. Go to school, take advantage of the tuition assistance. Because not in addition to the military experience, military can pay for your school while you in. You can't use tuition assistance when you get out. You can use GI Bill, but you can
Right.
say your GI Bill and use tuition assistance while you're in. And you can't collect tuition assistance TA. So if you don't use it that year, then guess what? You just don't use it. So that's just a year wasted. So not only get that experience from your trade or whatever you're doing, what your job is, but school. Go up to whatever schools you can go to in the Coast Guard, and then out of the Coast Guard, as far as college, stuff like that. Get education so you can build that resume. Because so many people get out unprepared, and it just happens all the time. Get out unprepared. So my biggest advice: start working on your exit strategy when you first get in.
That's excellent advice. So my next question is, what type of advice do you have for active duty members or members that are separating, planning to retire, or just getting out of the service?
So getting out, I would say you got to be thinking about taking care of yourself, and not in a selfish way. You know, it's all about team, military team, stuff like that. But you get to a point where you only get one body, and when you get out the Coast Guard, guess what the Coast Guard is going to do? They're going to hire somebody else. They're going to promote somebody in your place. They're going to recruit people, more people in boot camp, and you're going to be replaced. They can't stop the mission because a person is getting out or retiring. So for cats getting out, I'm saying take care of yourself. Go to medical, get your stuff documented. Follow up with your appointments. It was a lot of times, you know, man, I ruptured my Achilles, I broke my foot, tore my shoulders, had shoulder surgery, a bunch of different stuff, bro. But sometimes it's like, oh no, I'll push through it. You know, you don't want to go to medical, whatever. But my advice for people getting out, take care of yourself. You know, get those appointments done before you get out, because you only get one body. Coast Guard is gonna get many bodies.
That's right.
So my advice to people getting out, take care of yourself. Follow up with those appointments, because this body you're gonna have to live with after you get out the Coast Guard, not just when you're in the Coast Guard. You're gonna have to live with this body after you get out of the Coast Guard. So take care of yourself physically and mentally. You know, most important. And so when you hit those points where you're taking care of yourself physically and mentally, you know, as well. So that's my advice. Get everything documented.
Excellent advice. Thank you for that. Veterans, make sure y'all taking notes here. And man, you've shared so much wonderful information with us today. We are at that bittersweet part of the interview where we are at the final question. What would you say is the most valuable lesson that you could take from your active duty service?
Ooh, that's tough. That's tough because you know, I learned so much. You got so much experience. So the most valuable lesson I learned while I was in, I would say working with people and learning how to work with people. Because in the military, you get a unique experience to work with people from all over the country, even all over the world. When I was in A school, you know, we had the students coming from Jamaica, overseas, all in places, you know. And so having that opportunity to interact with people of all different types of backgrounds, locations, big cities, country, all of that stuff. I would say that my most valuable lesson was to learn how to deal with people, interact with different people, because that's definitely a skill that you can take when you get out. You know, especially if you're talking about starting your own business or something like that. Because if you can learn how to interact with people in a positive way, even if they trying to be negative, you can learn how to interact with people, learn how to talk to people, approach people, learn how to be about your business when you're talking to people, learn how to see through the smoke screens, because people throw smoke screens in front of you, tell you one thing, like they say, don't pee on my back and tell me it's raining. You feel me? And so I think that's one of the most valuable lessons I can take from my military experience, is that I've dealt with a lot of people from everywhere. And so I was able to take that experience, those lessons learned from dealing with different types of people, to learn how to interact with people, how to deal with people, and that experience allowed me to be able to deal with people now, from a business perspective, things like that, to where I'm not uncomfortable in any room. You know what I mean? Regardless of what room it is, corporate. I was negotiating contracts for buildings, build out leases, negotiating stuff for business, and I wasn't uncomfortable wherever I was at. You know what I mean? I was comfortable sitting there with them. They put their pants on one leg at a time, just like I do. I dealt with many different types of people. So being able to interact with people and learning that interaction, how to deal with people, those are valuable lessons. And so now I can sit at whatever table, and I'm comfortable in my own skin to hold my own, for whatever we doing.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Man, working with others is such a
Yeah,
it is such a useful tool.
yeah,
Well, last but not least,
yes, sir.
now that you are retired, and how do you spend your days? What keeps you busy?
Man, family, kids. You know how you in, man. You busy. You may be on the boat or whatever, and so I'm taking advantage of being able to see my son grow up. Be a man, and of course we do the business too. So that's what I was working on. So I started the business around 2017. So 7 years now. So it was 7 years in August. That's when we got our first client, August of 2017. But I started the business while I was still on active. And so, like earlier that year, I moved to Virginia for my last station, my last unit. Got stationed out in Virginia. So earlier that year, we saw building space, and it was an opportunity.
Yeah,
I was ready for it. I was ready for it this time.
yeah,
You feel me? So being ready for it, so open, and of course the doors open, man. God bless me. And so I was ready for it. And so we got the first little small joint, giving therapy. But the first one it was just under 1,000 square feet, like 900 square feet joint, 3 rooms, bathroom, and a storage closet. That was it. And I'm in the Coast Guard, and the people that was there, the owners, they owned a suite next to it, adjacent to it, and then they rented out that suite in this complex. And so they're like, all right, 1,200. Being transparent, they like 1,200, everything included. Utilities, everything was electric. It was small. So they're like 1,200, everything included. They doing maintenance, they doing this. I'm like, that's a bet. You know what I mean? It was a
yeah,
sacrifice, but that's
yeah,
that's a bet. So thinking about that, and then took that step, had to sign it.
yeah,
Once you sign that, there's no going back after that. You feel me? So signing that lease, I had to move forward. Um, so I signed that lease, and I had to pay an extra 1,200. I was still in active duty. I had to pay 1,200 for this space. So it took like 6 months to get the stuff in that we needed. So 1 month I put this in there. Another month I put this in there. Another month I buy this. You know what I mean? And then by August, we was ready to take the first client. And so it took 6 months to
yeah,
get the stuff in there, because I ain't do a business on nothing like that.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
They ain't handing out business loans like they handing out car loans. You
I
can
know
go to a
that's
car
right.
dealership, get a loan, but you try to go to get a business loan. No, it ain't that easy.
Yeah,
Plus I didn't want a lot of overhead anyway. So I didn't get a business on nothing like that. So I had to wait a month, and then get this. Wait another couple months, because I was still in active duty too. And then in August we got our first client. Um, and then once we got that first client, that one client was able to pay the expenses for that building. It was just $1,200.
yeah,
So that one client was able to pay the expenses for that building. It's like, so all right, now I'm not coming out of pocket, and we're still getting still getting some profit off the one client, and it's paying for the expenses because it's only $1,200 in a month. And so getting that first client, it was kind of surreal, you know what I mean? And we got another client, a couple months later or something like that. That was in 2017. I didn't get out until 2020. So now we got, 2020. So now that was like, 3 years of running the business before I got out. So when I got out, it was a better transition. And so time I spend now, that's some of the time. But we've been operating for 7 years, so it kind of like runs itself. You still got to deal with stuff, obviously.
Right.
But with technology, you don't have to necessarily be there to deal with it. I can pick up my phone as an app. I run payroll, right on the app. You feel me? And so doing a business, family, and then of course music. Man. Music was my first passion. That was my first passion. First thing I was ever passionate about was music, music and God. And so music being my first passion, I didn't really have a lot of time in the Coast Guard to do it. I had to go back to my first passion.
Yeah.
And so with the business, that created an opportunity where I don't have to work a 9 to 5. I still got to work. You got to put in the work. So it's not easy, but I don't got to work a 9 to 5. I can say, hey, I'm not going to do this today. Because it's kind of running itself now. But so I was able to go back to my first passion, man, which is music, creating. And we was talking about it, So now I kind of fall back to more mixing master. I write my own stuff, I record my own stuff as I hear it. But as far as working with other people, I do more mixing, master, and stuff like that. So keeping the business going. Sometimes it's you go through certain periods of time where it's a little more work. You got to get certain stuff going, deal with people, stuff like that. And then at the same time, COVID hit in 2020. You feel me? And so you know what that did to business. COVID.
Yeah.
But we survived COVID. That was 2020. Now that's 5 years later. We still kicking. You feel me? But it's preparation. It's preparation, stacking money. And so so now dealing with the business, but still got time for the family. My kids going to college. My oldest in college. My daughter, she about to graduate this year. Next semester. So she about to be in college. And you know how it is. They 18, but you know how it is. They ain't gonna be grown. They ain't gonna be independent. As soon as they grow, as soon as they 18.
Yeah.
So being able to spend time with the fam, teach them a different mindset than what I had when I was growing up. And because I obviously was different with me growing up and them growing up, because my parents, like my dad, he grew up in Alabama, Mobile, Alabama. And then they moved to Ohio and then moved to Detroit. That's how I met my mom. My mom was always in Detroit. She was born and raised in Detroit. My pops was down south. He was down south. He was drinking from colored only water fountain. I'm not talking about my great grandfather. You feel me? I'm not talking about generations in. This is my pops.
Yeah.
My pops was in Mobile, Alabama, drinking from colored only faucets. His family was living in. It was like 11 of them all together. They were living in the dormitory. They got their water from wells, bro. He was wrestling down cows. That dude was country strong, bro. And so I said that to say that I can teach my kids something different. Because back then they worked fields. Like he had to drop out of school and work the fields down south because he couldn't go out and get a job, that these other cats getting, because it was still legal segregation.
Right.
Not counting his mom. So they worked hard, growing up, but it was no wealth to pass down.
Right.
It wasn't that financial literacy to pass down.
Right.
But when they started to get wisdom, they passed down that wisdom. Like, all right, my mom always say, we did better. We did a little better than what our parents did. You do better than what we did, and you make sure your kids do better than what you did. That's how you build that generational wealth and knowledge. Now I can teach my kids because of the experience that I had. Spend this time out the Coast Guard, getting them into a different mindset, so now they can do better than what I did. I didn't have wealth to get passed down to me, but guess what? Now I got something to pass down to my kids. You feel me? I can teach them how to run a business.
Yeah.
And I can hand them a business.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And opportunities that I didn't have. But although they didn't have financial money to pass down, like I say, they pass down wealth, because I don't see wealth as just money.
Right.
They pass down wisdom. Like, you don't have to do this. You don't have to struggle like we did, because there's more opportunity. There's no excuse these days to be ignorant. You can pick up your phone and Google anything.
Anything.
You can go to the government website and they'll tell you how to formulate your business and what you got to do.
Yeah.
There's no excuse to be ignorant.
Yeah.
You feel me? So now they pass down that wisdom. And so now we got the opportunity. And so if you listen to that wisdom, mix it with the opportunity and the technology that you have to literally get information from anywhere. And while you're sitting in your bed, you know what I mean?
Right.
You can get what you need, and so now getting out, spending that time, trying to instill that mindset in my kids. You don't have to work for nobody if you don't want to. You feel me? If you do, you do.
Yeah.
My daughter wants to go in the medical field. She work for a practice or whatever. You move up. You work for somebody. You work for somebody.
Yeah.
And then you move up, you get your own practice, whatever, however you want to do it. But you don't have to.
That's wonderful. Man. Well, I want to thank you once again for sharing your time with us and sharing so much knowledge with us today, for being our special guest. I also want to thank you for your service. I want to thank you for being a shipmate.
Yes, sir.
We sailed together.
Yeah, man.
And I want to offer peace, positivity, and blessings to you and your family. Also, my condolences.
Shout out DB Shell. And I appreciate, the advice stuff you gave me, helped me out, with my transition too. So shout out you too, man. And definitely all love, bro. And we'll definitely be back doing something.
All love. That's all we have. And we want to thank everybody for watching. Until next time on the Veteran Kettle Podcast.
Grab a seat where the coffee is always hot and fresh. Listen to real stories of adversity and triumph with special guests, U.S. military veterans. Be amazed, educated, and inspired. Hosted by DB Chef TV on YouTube at TVK Podcast. Subscribe and hit the notification so you never miss an episode of the Veteran Kettle. Sign up for the newsletter and shop merch and clothing at www.dbcheftv.com.